Metal Express Radio is pleased to have Mark Evans, a singer of Heaven's Edge, on our show today. Hello, Mark from Philadelphia. Are you in Philadelphia still?
I'm in New Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia, but born and raised in Philadelphia.
Oh, cool. So I'm going to turn back the clock probably like more than 30 years ago when the band was first formed out of Philadelphia in 1987. How did the band come together, and how was the club scene back then?
Well, the band came together. I had started playing full-time in like cover bands, club bands, like 1980. And in like, I guess it was like 1985 and 86, I joined a band or started a band with some other musicians called Network. And the band was very, very popular in the area. We did really well. And we happened to do a show with a band called White Fox opening up for us, a show that we were going to do all originals, not a night of covers. And Reggie Wu was the guitar player in White Fox. And that was the first time I had met him and the first time I had seen him play. And I was just like, holy shit. and then, I mean, he blew me away. He was stuck in my mind. And a few weeks later, my girlfriend at the time, wife now, was out at a club and seeing White Fox, and Reggie came up to her and asked her if she thought I might be interested in writing with him. So she passed it on to me, and I was like, absolutely, called Reggie. And it was funny because we got together at his place, and in the first, I don't know, less than a month, we had written a number of songs, and we were like, wow, this is awesome. Everything's clicking. Because Reggie and I were not main songwriters in the other bands we were in. And I guess that's what we wanted to be. So him and I got together and decided, you know what? We definitely have the chemistry. We want to try and move forward, and let's jump at this and start a band. Now, the problem is I was in Network for a living. I was playing 5 and 6 nights a week. So, and making good money at the time. For a musician, for a local musician anyway. And so Reggie was just like, yeah, but you're going to leave Network? I was like, well, you're going to leave White Fox. And they were doing, they were a local original band that was doing well, really good band. And so I ended up leaving Network. They thought I was crazy. Because actually when I quit and told Network I was leaving, we didn't even have a band yet. It was just Reggie and I. Like, you don't even have a band and you're telling us you're leaving? I was like, yep, I feel that strong about it. And, but him and I both being in the bands that we were in, the respective bands we were in, we were both known throughout the area. So it really helped to kind of kickstart us. Plus the area was really, really hot at the time. Britney had just gotten signed. Cinderella had gotten signed before that. And so the record companies were paying attention to our area. Not like we had turned into the Sunset Strip, but they were starting to pay attention. And for us to come out of the gate and have, packed clubs and good gigs and stuff, because we had a little bit of a name already, really helped us back then. And the club scene back then was so different than it is now. I mean, there were so many clubs that were around, and there were a bunch that were, where the cover bands played. They had the country bars. They had where you went to dance, and then they had the original clubs. They had the Empire in the Empire Rock Club in Philadelphia, and in South Jersey they had the Galaxy, and the Galaxy was like the Philadelphia South Jersey's version of CBGB's. It had a certain smell to it, a certain look to it. Your feet stuck to the floor when you walked through it. Wintertime they'd put kerosene heaters down to help heat the place. But it was a dive, but it was the dive that we all played at and that we all loved. And that all of those bands, I mean, that club, which is now a pet store, that club, which is still sitting there, had a recording studio upstairs.
Wow.
Owner of the club actually lived upstairs, and they had rehearsal spaces. Well, Cinderella rehearsed upstairs in this one certain rehearsal space. They got signed and moved on. Brittany Fox moved into that rehearsal space. They got signed and they moved on. We moved into that rehearsal space and we got signed and moved on, just didn't move on as far as the rest of them did. Maybe it was something about that rehearsal space. I don't know. But there were just so many places to play back then. And the clubs were crowded and not to be off color, but I remember maybe 10 years ago or so, I was playing in a tribute band and remember going back to the owner of the club to get, settle up at the end of the night. And this was a club that was still around then, but used to play it with Heaven's Edge, used to play it with Network. And so I knew the owner of the club. And by the end of the night, he had been partying just as much as everybody else in the club. And I remember sitting in there and he goes, Mark, you know what the problem is? You know why the clubs aren't as hot as they used to be? Kids are taking the wrong drugs.
Nice.
And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, they used to do crank and coke. They were up all night. They were out drinking. They were dancing and partying. Now everybody's doing downers. It's just not the same. And I'm sitting there and going, wow, this is so wrong that this owner is telling me this, but I can't find any reason to argue with him to say he's wrong.
Wow. Now, before you guys did your album in 1999, I want to take you back to a time that, everyone's familiar with what happened to Dimebag Darrell and Pantera, but I recently just found out with the promo sheet that you guys had a close call way back then, back in the late 80s, where a gunman walked in on a club on you and your bass player got hit.
Yes. Very scary night. It's not something that anything you'd ever expect to happen. And we had just found out that we were signed to Columbia Records. And we were playing actually at the Empire Rock Club over in Philadelphia, up in the Northeast. And we were, if I remember it all correctly, we were playing Saturday night, and then we were going to be there at the club again on Sunday because they used to do an all ages Sunday, like an early show, and which were always fun. They were absolutely packed. And it's funny now because I'm actually friends with some of the people who are like, we used to come and see you on all ages Sunday. I'm like, stop, you make me feel old. But we're playing, and because we were playing again the next day, and we had just gotten signed, we were hanging out and having a few drinks and having a good time. And George was like, look, I got to get going. We got a gig tomorrow. I was going to go home and get some rest. Like, okay. And I was, we were all having drinks and celebrating. So we were pretty lit. And I don't know, 5-10 minutes go by, and all of a sudden he turns around, he comes back in the club, and there was music playing through the PA and stuff, so we didn't hear anything. He came back in and he's walking across the club, and I'm sitting on the edge of the stage, and I was walking back. I'm like, George, what's up? What's the problem? He's like, Mark, I think I got shot.
Oh man!
I'm like, what? And at that, he collapsed on me. And then he just started to bleed.
Wow.
And he was hit by a shotgun. So he had pellets in him from like below his knee all the way up into his neck. Just got the whole one side of him.
And him getting hurt, that ended up kind of delaying the album some because you were wait for him to recuperate, right?
Yeah. We decided to wait for him, which obviously in retrospect held the album up and got it further into as grunge was coming out.
Yeah.
You can always, hindsight's always 20/20, because the funny thing is I'm actually a bass player. I could have played the parts.
Oh.
Then it wouldn't have been outside the band, but it was important for the five of us to be what was on the record. And
right.
We couldn't see ahead and go, you know what, our time's limited on this. We thought this was going to, this kind of music and everything was going to go on forever.
Right.
So who knew?
Yeah. So then let's go talk about your debut, which is a kick-ass album. I think I got to get it here on camera. It was actually produced by Neil Kernon.
Yes.
And other than having a kick-ass cover, his name on there was probably one of the reasons I bought it. How did you guys get hooked in with him being a young band? And that must have been ecstatic.
Oh man. He was recommended to us, and obviously you look at his resume and go, oh, okay, no problem. Because I know we were in talks for Rick Derringer actually to produce the first record.
Oh, wow.
And then with the delay, and then Neil becoming available with that delay, because I think at the time he was doing the Britney Fox Poison Heat record. He was either doing that or he was doing the Valentine record at that time. But the schedule would work for when George was going to be recuperated, and Neil being done those records, that we'd be able to go right into the studio with Neil, which is how it worked out. And he was amazing to work with. I mean, the guy's worked with everybody under the sun. He's got so many, gold and platinum records that he has produced. And for me as a singer, the singers that this guy's worked with, that was a little intimidating.
Yes. Considering his work with Dokken, Queensrÿche, just to name a few.
Yeah, Michael Bolton, Daryl Hall.
Yeah.
John Anderson. I mean, just some great voices.
Now, as you mentioned before, from the area you guys came from, you actually, and then in Jersey, you had Bon Jovi, you got Cinderella, Skid Row, and Britney Fox. Given that it was a hard time for hair metal when that album came out, do you think, did what happened with that album meet your expectations at that time? I mean, we all wanted it to be, gold and the top 10, but.
Well, let me put it this way. I'm incredibly, incredibly proud of that record. I can still listen to it and not cringe or anything like that. I think the production stands up.
Oh, yeah.
I'm still, I'm very proud of the songs that Reggie and I wrote for that record and how well the band played on it.
Is there any chance that we'll get that re-released on vinyl at all?
I don't, you know what? I've never even thought of that. Not a bad idea. Considering how well
I need it.
Self-promotion. Yeah. Considering how this vinyl did, we sold out of it.
Oh, I know. I was at we can talk later, but I was at the party where you had the signed copies and they were gone.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and all the ones that the label printed up are gone. That people ordered online are all gone.
So then back then when that album came out, did you guys feel the shift in the music scene coming?
A little bit. Excuse me 1 second.
Sure.
My dog wants to get out.
That's where we can edit stuff.
Right. There you go. All right. So, yeah, I mean, at the time, really, what's strange is because we had no idea at that time when we were recording the record or doing that. Nobody knew who Nirvana was yet, or Pearl Jam or any of that. And really the biggest change that was going on was Guns N' Roses, because their look was kind of in between. So all of a sudden we're going, wow, are we dressing, what I mean? Like, are we dressing too retro? You know what I mean? Like old school hair metal or whatever you want to call it we're doing. So the look was starting to change. It wasn't as glamorous, for lack of a better word.
Right.
It was, that part had started to change. So we started to feel, the change more in the look, and some of the bands were getting a little bit heavier. Like you said, like a Guns N' Roses, that was a lot more riff driven, I don't know, they just had a little bit more, oomph than some of the other stuff.
Right.
And, but no, when Nirvana came out and that started exploding, and obviously there were millions of Nirvana fans, I still listen to it and go, I don't get it. I just don't. But
yes, I'm here.
Plenty of people, I'm sure people have listened to Heaven's Edge Get It Right today and went, I don't know, I don't get it. So everybody, it's just a matter of taste. But no, we did, at that point, we did not see it coming. So when it did come and hit us, it straight in the face.
Okay, and then you guys called it quits in 1993, and then all of a sudden, 1998, this comes out on Paris Records with rarities and hard demos and stuff like that. So how did that happen?
We were contacted. I guess back then it had to be somehow through email, maybe.
Yeah.
And that Paris Records and MTM wanted to know if we had any recordings that that we had done that we owned that they could put together to do another, to put together another record. And fortunately, we had some some pretty good quality demos that we had done. I mean, they obviously vary on that album. You listen to the album, and the sound quality kind of goes from here and then down, and that, what I mean,
Right.
because they were all demos. And so that that definitely surprised us a bit. I mean, it was a good surprise,
Right.
but I mean, at that point there, we weren't even a band. But it was, it was great that it came out, because there are songs that people know on that we now play live that people love to hear live. So that album never came out. There's a lot of songs that we still do that they wouldn't know about.
Yep. And then in 2019, tragically, you lost your bassist, George, to lung cancer.
Yeah.
And then a little bit down the road, I guess you and your current bass player, Jaron Gulino, you tossed around the idea of revamping Heaven's Edge or bringing them back online. How did that happen? Just drunken over some beers one night, or?
No, actually, I guess it's the whisper down the lane thing. The way that the story actually happened is the year in 2019 when we lost George. We were booked in 2019 to play at M3 that year. And when he found out he was sick over the winter that year, he was like, I am going to battle through this. I am not going to miss M3. That's my goal. I'm going to make it to M3. And it wasn't until maybe a couple of weeks before M3 was scheduled, whatever was sometime in May that year, that we had to contact Eric and tell him that George is just too sick. We're not going to be able to make it. And which broke George's heart. He loves playing live and loved playing at M3. But then the next thing that we had booked was the following winter. We were booked on the following February, I guess it was, booked on the Monsters of Rock cruise again. So in August, when George passed, we all went through the grieving process of losing him, but then we had to talk business, so I don't know exactly when after we talked about it, but we were like, we have the cruise coming up. What do we want to do? Do we just want to just kind of let this die on the vine here, or do we want to try and keep the band's legacy going and George's legacy alive, and try and get somebody that we think fits the band and go out and play? And we're thinking about different bass players that we know. We know plenty. We'd even toyed with me just playing bass again for the band and going up there like winger with me playing bass.
Yeah.
But I got a hard no on that. They were like, nope, you've got to have. That was the reason when Heaven's Edge first got together. The first version of the band was Reggie, myself on bass, Reggie obviously on guitar, myself on bass, Steve on guitar, and Dave on drums.
Oh, okay.
And after a couple of rehearsals, we were like, yeah, this isn't going to work. We need a front man. So that's when we knew George already. So it was an easy, fit to bring him in. But with this time, we didn't want somebody, because I mean, we're older, we're old. But we still try and go out there and play with energy and move around the best we can for, as long as we still can. So the more we thought about it, we were like, you know what, maybe we can find somebody younger. And I was like, younger? I know a guy. And I had met Jaron a number of years before. Randomly, I sold him a bass amp on Craigslist. And when I met up with him, he knew who I was. He knew Heaven's Edge. And at the time, I think he was probably like 23 or something. And nice. I was like, oh, you're kidding me. And then he came with his band. And I said, oh, well, I'd love to come out and check out your band sometime. Yeah, I said, are you on Facebook? Yep. So I go on Facebook to friend him, and his cover photo comes up, and his cover photo is Lynch Mob at M3. And so it's a picture of George Lynch on stage at M3. And strangely enough, my wife and I are standing behind George Lynch on stage
Nice.
in his cover photo. So I called him up. I'm like, I'm on your cover photo, right? He's like, oh yeah. But now, strange enough, all those years later, he's in Heaven's Edge with me, and he's in Lynch Mob with George.
Yeah. Yeah. So between 2013 and that 2019 M3 Fest, were you guys playing at all, just here and there, or?
Before we did the Fire Festival, I mean?
Yeah, before M3 Rock Fest that you were going to do with George in 2019, and you called it quits in 2013. Were you guys like playing any gigs between that 6-year period, or?
From 2013 to 2019? Yeah, we were still, we had played M3 numerous times. Had numerous times on the Monsters of Rock cruise. We had, we went over and played Firefest in England. Trying to think where else. Chicago, played the Melodic Rock Fest.
Yeah, I missed that one. I guess I must have missed that. I just moved from Chicago in June, and I was there 61 years, we'll say.
Oh, you're 61? Me too.
Yeah.
I'd be 62 actually this year.
Yeah, me too, November.
Yeah, we played at, I think it was right outside of Chicago. Arlington Heights or something?
Arlington Heights, yeah. That was north from where I was at, yep.
Okay, yeah, that's where we played, but we stayed right near Chicago. And that was a good festival. It was us. I know Heat played, and that was back when Eric was still in Heat. Who else? Mitch Malloy played. It was a good festival. We had a really good time. The crowd out there was awesome.
Yep. All right, so we fast forward to 2022, and actually to May 12th, and today is release day of the new album.
Yes.
How did you told a story at the record release party where did you get contacted by Frontiers Records to do a deal?
Yes.
Was it Serafino, maybe the head A&R guy?
No, it was not Serafino. It was Mario. And we had a nice talk with him, a nice video chat with him. Because when they reached out to us, we were still kind of in disbelief, going, "Really? A new record? Really?" And but we talked to them, and they were big fans of the band. The way that they work with the bands and give the bands enough freedom to do their thing meant a lot to us. And on top of that, just, the fact that we can go, we got a new album out on, and then people first off will look and go, oh yeah, right. No, I'm like, no, seriously, it's like the same label as Journey and Whitesnake and Night Ranger and Winger and, bands like that.
And don't be so humble, but it wasn't just one record. You got a deal for what you said, 3, right?
3, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So hopefully we've got 2 more in it.
Okay. So the name of that new album, that's back here somewhere back here, or you have it. The title is called Get It Right. Is there some significance to that title?
Yes. The initial significance was we just needed a name that sounded cool. And so, you do all the band tricks of, okay, well, what about this? What about that? And we're like, okay, well, what about, song titles? We want to do any song titles? No. And we're not going to do song titles. But what about maybe we'll find a cool lyric somewhere in there. And I had already had the rough mixes of the album. This is probably last fall, maybe. The recordings were done. We had all the rough mixes. And I was sitting out back with my wife, and we were listening to some of the stuff. And the song When the Lights Go Down came on. And in that song, and now I'm trying to remember lyrics partway in. What I wouldn't give to start things over, get it right, in the bridge of When the Lights Go Down. We're out back listening, and the bridge came up, and my wife went, what about Get It Right? I was like, I like it. We have a group text with the guys in the band. I'm like, guys, what about Get It Right for the album title? And everybody came back, yes, sounds great, love it. And then Dave, being our drummer, but also being a record executive, and he thinks more deeply about these things, I guess. He was just like, Get It Right is perfect. I mean, what else would we be trying to do after all these years? We've got fans that have stuck by us all these years that have been waiting and wanting this music. I mean, obviously, it's not like we're not the new Extreme or the new Metallica or something like that. We are just Heaven's Edge. But the fans that we have been so loyal to us for all of these years. It means the world to us. So if we're going to do this again and actually get a second chance, we better get it right.
Was all the material for this new album, was this newly written, or did you guys maybe have stuff in your back catalog that you never used, that you revisited, anything like that?
Most of the album was written within the past few years. Actually, probably more than half the album was written last winter. There's a couple songs on there that might be, I don't know, like maybe 3-4 years old. And the song that was the second single, What Could Have Been, that was the oldest on the record. That's probably about 12 or 13 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And Reggie and I had written that song back then. And actually, initially, it was somebody had messaged us and they said, we're putting together a compilation record of bands like us, over in Europe. Do you want to submit a song? We'd like it to be a new song. Okay. So Reggie and I wrote What Could Have Been, and we hadn't written anything in years. We wrote What Could Have Been and went, wow, this is really freaking good. We can't send this to them. We need to save this. So we wrote another song for them called Piece of the Action, I believe it was, and sent that over. And we held on to What Could Have Been, the original version of it. Then while we were in the midst of getting going with the writing for this record, Dave, our drummer, had put us in contact with a tremendous songwriter, a musician named Jacob Bunton. And Jacob Bunton became on some of these songs, kind of like became our Mutt Lang, like that extension of the band thing. And what Could Have Been was one of the songs that we had written. We really liked the song, but we just knew it was missing something. We sent it to Jacob. He sent it back a couple days later. He had taken the song, completely re-recorded everything, and he changed one line in the chorus and added a bridge. And that was it. And he sent it back to us, and Reggie and I just went, holy shit, that's exactly what it was missing. And he just, he was that little missing piece of the puzzle on that song, on Had Enough, on Nothing Left But Goodbye, and When the Lights Go Down. They were all songs that we had written that we knew had that potential, but we just couldn't get them over the edge. And we'd send them to him, and he would just put that, tweak a couple of things here and there and put his little polish and magic on it and send it back. And we'd be like, when he would send us something back, it'd be like, wow, it's exactly what I would have done if I had only thought of that.
Right. That's awesome. And that's the one thing, that's the biggest thing I enjoy in the new album, is that the choruses are really great. That's why I think Had Enough is one of my favorites on that new album.
Well, thank you.
Okay. So then
I enjoy writing the big choruses.
Yeah, the big choruses. Yeah. Last weekend you played M3 Fest, Rock Fest.
Yes.
And we're almost going up to half hour, and I guess I'm going to exceed my time here pretty soon. But, so that was a surprise to me, because I was expecting loudness. And then I checked the lineup on the site one day and it said Heaven's Edge. And I said, holy shit, I couldn't expect, a better replacement. So how did you guys fall into that real quick?
Well, we had actually been, because we've played M3, I think this was our fourth time, something like that. I should remember that, but I'm old, so my memory's not that great. And, so we know the people at M3, and Eric Baker, who runs M3, is a good friend as well. We've, become good friends over the years. And when he knew that we had the album coming out, he had told us, because we had played M3 last year, and he had told us that he wanted us back this year. And so when they announced the original lineup, we weren't on it. We were like, Eric, I thought we were going to be doing it. He's like, oh, they had the opportunity to, they wanted to try and cut down as many back-to-back performers as possible, because you know how people can be on Facebook.
Yep.
Why didn't you get this band? Why, all that stuff. So he had told us back then, he said, what I want to do is I want to do your record release party. And he had told us this months and months ago. He said, I want to do your record release party at M3. We'll do it Saturday night at the hotel after the bands are done. Everybody will be back there. We'll make it we'll just make it a huge party. So the Saturday night thing at M3, we had known about for quite a while, but he wanted to hold off until a few weeks before to announce it. They time things where they make the announcements to keep excitement up and such. And at around the time that they were announcing that we were doing a record release party that we were going to play at on Saturday night, Loudness canceled. And they were kind of in a jam. I mean, it's bands like us from our level up to the levels of Extreme and Kicks and all them. There's only so many of those bands around, and there are only so many of those bands that you can get together in a few weeks' notice to have the entire band rehearsed, ready to go, and heading to Maryland for a show. So the easy thing for them to do is to add us to Sunday as well on at the pavilion. And we're not going to say no, besides, playing a show like that, but also the fact that they were being nice enough to throw this huge party for us, which was amazing. So the Sunday show came up kind of quick on us. The Saturday one we knew about, it just wasn't announced.
Great. All right. Well, we're running out of time, and I guess I'll give you the mic for a quick minute, and you can say whatever you want to your fans that are out there.
All right. I guess all I can say is thank you. When we got back together again, when Heaven's Edge got back together again, we had no idea what to expect because we weren't in the scene. We weren't, focused on that. And we had no idea who, if anybody, even remembered it. And we couldn't have been more wrong. You people have been out there and have been, listening to our music all this time that we weren't playing it and doing that. And then once we got back, the fans that we have just wrapped themselves around us and kept us motivated to want to do stuff like this and put out a new record and feel good enough to put out a new record. And also playing these shows, we've gained some new fans, which we love them as well. So please, everyone, get out there, order it online. Heaven's Edge, get it right. We've got the vinyl, I think, might be out of stock. We've also got the CDs. And if what you do is stream music on Apple, Spotify, any of those streaming services, we are on there. Please listen. Feel free to leave us a message on Facebook on what you think about the record. We'd love to hear from you.